Hello and welcome to this special NRF Key Takeaways webinar with ITAB and the Retail Podcast. My name's Alex. I'm the host of the Retail Podcast, and my partner in crime today is...
Hi everyone, I'm Emma from ITAB. I just wanted to inform you that if you have any questions during the webinar, please type them in the toolbar on your right, and we will try our very best to answer them as quickly as possible. Let's go and please enjoy the webinar.
Perfect. Thanks, Emma. So what we've got is we've got some guests lined up for you, and I'll introduce the guests. But first of all, let's take a quick overview of some of the key highlights that I took away, and then Emma will share some of the key highlights that she took away. That's obviously us rocking the New York look at NRF. This year, I think you'll hear from our guest, NRF was the busiest, the biggest it's ever been, leaving me with the thought of where next, where it's just, the pace of growth. It feels like they're going to need to find a new home for it. But it has been an immense experience to be there. And one of the reasons is the sheer scale. So this is the keynote takeaway auditorium. You can see there's 6 massive screens going all the way down to the stage. And obviously you can't even see the person at the bottom. That's Mark Benioff talking about his shopping experiences. Every single talk track that I went to, obviously there was a massive focus on AI. We had about 500 to 600 people per talk, but there was only standing room only. Again, showing I think the transformation that's happening in retail right now, and the fact that retailers are wanting to keep up to date with what's going on, and that's hopefully what we're going to do through this webinar with you. One of the key things that for me stuck out, and for all of us who work in physical retail or have worked in physical for a long time, is trying to do online in physical is not the best way to serve the customer. And now the data is showing that, yes, customers want access to those digital capabilities. So yes, they want to, and I'll pick on the first one, Doris, deliver online, return in store. But they want these capabilities in store, which absolutely, that's part of the modern shopping experience. But they don't want that to be the store. The store still has to have its own essence and its own beauty, inviting intrigue and discovery. And a great article to highlight the problem of physical retail, specifically in the US, more so than in the Europe, was an article for Vox.com about how going shopping is dead. Again, this is a quick recap, so I'm not going to necessarily go into it, but I think it's great to read. But I think this is the focus where some of you probably are already doing this. I know ITAB does this when they turn up and talk to their customers, but it's about refocusing on the design. And this is not us or an ITAB presentation. This is one of the keynote presentations from WD Partners talking about the failure of retail and what retail needs. And so, as you would expect, design is at the heart of that. Your associates need to be empowered to provide better service. Visual merchandising needs to be able to have its own forefront. And then in this particular presentation, music was at the heart of what WD Partners felt was sort of the intrinsic element for creating customer experience. One of the other keynotes that I found was interesting from GDR, was from Kate, was the fact that she was talking about we're moving from the end of abundance to the end of waste. So we've sort of gone from this period of retail being a linear activity where you shop and then throw away to being full circle. And this year, although we didn't have enough of a focus on sustainability, the themes of recycle, repurpose, upcycle were at the heart of some of the new retailers entering the market in the US. So it's great to see that, especially with the EU legislation that's coming down about the life cycle of products and how that has to be disclosed. that we are now as consumers getting that choice. We can buy new if we want to, we can upcycle if we want, or we could just buy secondhand. And this was a great point made by one of the conversations. I think I'm going to hand over to Emma for her to give us her key takeaways. Emma, what were your key takeaways?
My key takeaways were mainly, as you said, AI is a huge topic within retail now and within the complete society, actually. So technology now are making together a new huge shift. So, for example, AI, machine learning, a lot of these things have been on top of mind for a lot of retailers along a lot of years. But now, when they all have grown, and now when they all are getting together, they create a new era. Some buzzwords that I got from the show was the retail media. That now the Gen AI and the AI is very big. We will then have a big shift within the retail media, and retail media will be a big factor in the industry of journalism and media as well. So we will now see personalized messages, and we will see stores that are using the media for guiding the customer, but also serve the customer and also goes beyond omnichannel. We will see offers before someone enters the store. We have these possibilities now that we haven't had before because of all these technologies. What I tried to catch on the show was to see, okay, where do they actually use this technology in terms of value adding businesses? You could have automated personalized service, as you can see in the very top. You can see an image, and that's a store that actually puts in your choice of clothes when you open the door. You choose them on a screen first, and then they say to you, hey, wait. And when you open the door, it's automated and AI that helped us to just collect the things behind the door to you. So we will be less dependent on staff service to get the service we need.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Emma. We're now going to go and speak to Simon, Vice President of Sales in the UK, to get his thoughts on what he came away with from the big show as well. So, Simon, obviously, some people may or may not have watched our live feeds direct from NRF, but I'd love to tap into your, why were you at NRF, expanding on the innovation and trends, and just to basically have a talk about what you took away from the show, and did it actually meet your objectives as an executive from ITAB being at the event?
Yeah, it absolutely did. And I think we talk a lot about NRF being a show, but I think before we kind of get into the show, I'd like to open it up a little bit more about why you head all the way over to New York, because I think for me, the show is probably 50% of the reality of the time that you spend there, because the rest of that time you make the most of that visit by visiting stores, meeting customers, meeting colleagues. And what you end up with over 4 or 5 days is a convergence of people from all over the world that have a passion for retail, all in that same place.
Yeah.
So although the show is a massive draw and it's kind of the magnet for all of those things, getting the time out there to step into your day job and actually visit stores that you wouldn't get to see on a day-to-day basis and understand how retail is evolving in the US is a really important part of why I would attend. And that was a big element of the show for me. 2 full days of nothing other than store visits, visiting some amazing stores, whether that's from a design perspective or whether that's just from a format and display perspective, or even trying to translate some of the challenges that our customers are facing here in the UK around how a retailer is tackling loss and some of the things that they're trying to do to combat the same problems that exist in retail all over the world. So for me, it was really, really time well spent, both at the show and away from the show, immersing myself in everything that's retail.
Okay. I mean, if it's okay with you, you've highlighted 3 themes. If we could sort of maybe unpack each theme, and I'll let you choose. So obviously, I'd love to know about the safari. I think I've got an idea because we did meet on the days. That's a spoiler alert. I've got an idea of the question, but
no.
Say again?
Yeah, not all of them. I did 2 days. So
okay, that's cool. So obviously, I'd love to know about your feeling and sentiment about specifically to ITAB in terms of the products and services that you provide, and then your customers and how that relates to the stores that you saw. I'd be curious on that. Then obviously, if we then sort of go in and drift into the trends and innovation that you saw at NRF, and then we'll see how much time we've got left to talk about the other areas. So yeah, tell me, how was the safari for you? What stood out for you?
So a few things stood out for different reasons. So I'll start with the store that we went to together. So Wegmans was superb. So it's a grocery store, but the emphasis on fresh was incredible.
Yeah.
When you walk into that first floor, it was all about food to go. They had a real understanding of who their consumer was and where their location was. But then when you went down the escalator and it opened up into what was this, I think it was 90,000 square foot of grocer, it was immense. But the emphasis on fresh, whether that's fish, whether that's charcuterie or cheese or fruit and veg, was just absolutely second to none. So experience led upstairs, fabulous emphasis on fresh downstairs. But then when you look at the execution of it, presentation, store discipline, retail standards, very, very sharp store indeed. That was a must-see visit.
Yeah.
But I think moving away from grocery, and obviously we work with a lot of grocers in the UK, so it's relevant to kind of look at as much as that as we can. But I think some of the real standouts were some of the things in the UK where people have started to go away from separate counters. Actually, this was a big deal. So there was a separate counter and a specialist for every area. And I think that kind of took retail back a little bit to perhaps a little bit more of a market feel, which I think felt really special. And I think food to go was so overemphasized that it wasn't just you could go in and grab a sandwich. It was you could go in and grab sushi, sandwich, poke bowl, a pizza, everything. Every taste was catered for. And I think that's way, way beyond what we would typically see in the UK.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. Second store or the other store?
I'm gonna go Crate and Barrel. So they opened a new store in December last year. I've always quite liked Crate and Barrel, but actually this store was I'm going to use the word beautiful. Really, really smart store. Felt so premium with a price point that was within reach, and I think they'd got a really nice balance of the way that their product was presented, the quality of their product versus what you could buy.
Yeah,
and there was so many elements of service. They really called out all of the free services that they provided, and it felt like they were trying to capture a customer for life. So they were really good on new baby, wedding, events. So they were trying to be part of the consumer's life journey and be there at every stage. I thought it was a really, really clever example of a store.
Sure.
And then I guess I'll flip it slightly differently. I know it's been around a little bit, but I loved Petco on Union Square.
Yeah.
And I'm a dog owner myself, but going into that store, there was a whole lot of theatre, but that was a store that really understood who its customer was. That each element of that store was an understanding of, okay, if you've got a dog, what's important to you? If you've got a cat, what's important to you? And you walk in, there's a dog deli, there's a dog wash, there's a groomers, there's a vets, and you see elements of that in the UK. But this had gone up a whole other level, and I went on a Saturday and they were holding puppy training classes in the store in a separate area, and just things that, again, understood the life cycle of a pet owner's journey to say we're here at every single stage of that journey, which I thought was very clever. And a lot of clever design tweaks, a lot of the way that they're displayed in their visual merchandising, but it just felt like a store that understood who its customer was, and that for me is always a winner.
Brilliant. I mean, just to pick up on the three themes that I take away from what you've said. Number one, in terms of people still want theatre, right? They still want that, as you said, beautiful design. Number two, know your customer in terms of the three examples that you've highlighted there all had an extrinsic knowledge of their customer and, everything that lives within that ecosystem of that. And then number three, in terms of the specific use cases or shopping missions, I think in terms of understanding the path to purchase isn't specifically now with the number of digital touch points people have. The store isn't just the place to go to transact like an e-commerce website, which I think was one of the takeaways I have, is that for so long we've been trying to make stores replicas of e-commerce, which has just been killing the store little by little by little, because we've introduced more process, introduced more technology, and sort of distracting from what the purpose of the store is. And it feels like, listening to you, those 3 stores actually knew what they were there to do, and how to delight.
Completely. They had a real sense of purpose. They understood their role in their customer's journey, and they fulfilled that role really well in very different ways. But actually, all of them were special because they were right for the market that they were in and the customers that they're serving. And I think that leads me to kind of the 4th of my top 4 trends. I kind of do it in the wrong order, but one of the things that I was really pleased about at the show was there was an overemphasis on physical retail. I was perhaps a little bit concerned that it would be all e-commerce and all around taking customers away from physical stores, but actually it didn't feel like that. It felt like e-commerce was complementary to physical retail. And I think that's how that came across really strong for me at the show, that some of the things that you've talked about in the past about metaverse and things like that.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't part of this. This was around saying shops are really important, and here are ways that you can serve customers better, you can operate more efficiently, you can protect your goods, all of those things around physical retailing, which I thought was quite powerful from the show.
Moving on, in terms of the show itself, I know you said that was your 4th trend. Are there any other elements from the show or from the expo, from people that you saw, that stood out for you?
So I think when we spoke live at the show, we talked about AI. AI was overly dominant, but I think on reflection of that, when you take that away, I mean, everybody's suddenly become an AI company in the last 12 months, and I think that's because people are trying to explain it differently. But actually, if you reflect on that, AI is about using data that already exists, but using it in a way that will allow you to move faster or smarter or expand the purpose of that data. So AI is about just using what we've already got and helping it move things on to perhaps places that you couldn't get to as quickly. So I think the term AI was probably overused, but I think the purpose of AI, without it being too complicated, was just about saying you know some stuff, whether that's about how your stock works, how your customers shop, how your people visit stores. How can you take that and look at it through different lenses that will allow you to make better informed decisions? And whether that's about personalization or whether that's just about understanding the data that you've got better. But I think that will just become the norm. I think eventually AI will become like, you use AI like you have a website. It's just what you do. So I think it was overemphasized, but actually not as scary as it perhaps would first appear.
Sure. I guess just coming towards the end of our conversation, in terms of one thing that inspired you and one thing that you felt was missing, if there was anything missing.
So I think in terms of being inspired, there's 2 areas that I was really keen to spend time looking at. One was about efficiency and one was about retail loss. Both of those things are really, really important to retailers now. And I was quite keen to understand, well, from an efficiency point of view, how can you really understand how your customers shop, where they go? And I saw things like digital shelf edge labels, which are everywhere, but actually digital shelf edge labels that flash different colors when you did it for in-store picking to help speed up efficiency. Those kind of things, I think, were really quite inspiring. That there was a lot as well around understanding what it's like to work in a store. So workforce management, scheduling, communication of colleagues, flexibility of colleagues, that came across a lot. So from an efficiency point of view, I felt that was represented really well, that lots of people understanding that working in shops is hard.
Yeah.
And actually being able to make that a little bit better was brilliant. And I thought from a loss point of view, more on inventory management of loss, probably the more than physical in-store loss, but lots of understanding around how you can use things like RFID to track where your product is at every stage of its journey.
Yeah.
Will allow you to, again, it's back to data, but it allow you to make better decisions around managing loss and managing that process in store by turning unknown loss into known loss. So I think really efficiency loss were big. I felt quite inspired to see that people understood how important that was.
Yeah.
And I think from a what was missing point of view, we touched a little bit at the show. I think sustainability was underemphasized. It didn't feel like it was at the heart of things. It was mentioned here and there. There was a sustainability corner, but it didn't feel like that was perhaps as forward thinking as I would expected before the show. You know, I thought AI would be a thing. We all did, maybe not to the extent, but I thought sustainability would sit a little bit higher than it did. And it wasn't that it wasn't there, but it felt like that was secondary in most instances, which surprised me a little.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Simon, thank you so much for carving out some time in your day to talk to us. I look forward to seeing you very soon and hopefully at next year's NRF.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks. We're now going to join Nick Hughes, CCO of ITAB, to get his thoughts on the big show. Nick, hello and welcome to the webinar.
Hi, Alex. Good to see you again.
Lovely to see you. I think, we'll get straight into it. Obviously, you had some thoughts and plans when you were on the plane flying to NRF or to New York. I just wondering if you could share with us what those were in terms of what you were hoping to get to the show before you actually arrived at the show.
Well, I mean, I've been visiting NRF for probably the last 15 years, probably too many years that I can count for. But I think we're always visiting to get the latest trends, the latest, I guess, direction from the tech companies, particularly those that service retail. And for my particular interest, that's in-store retail. So how are the market leaders in the industry supporting in-store experience, but also how they're helping retailers reduce cost of their operations. So there are many different carnations of that, and year on year you see slight different changes to language and slight different changes to how they present different technologies. Yes, that's really what I'm looking for, and I think there's an added bonus. Obviously, it's in New York, so you can see the latest and greatest in terms of stores and excellence in terms of store design. So again, that's a bit of a bonus to being out there.
Sure. In terms of just reflecting back over the past events that you have been to, what stood out for you in terms of NRF 2024 versus some of the other NRFs? Were there any key things that really stood out for you?
I think progressively over the years, I mean, the industry could be held guilty for having tech for tech's sake or looking for a problem with their technology. I think over the years, the majority of the businesses have become far more attuned to the retailer's problems, and how to address some of the challenges that retail has today. And the language has changed there. I think obviously the technology develops year on year, but I think people are far more, the exhibitors and NRF are far more attuned now to the business challenges that face worldwide retailers. And that for me is the real development over the years.
What were the key takeaways for you from the show? What did you come away thinking about?
I think it's very much aligned with our thinking from ITAB's perspective. I think retailers are caught with a real dilemma. This cost versus service for in-store experience. So how do they develop and deliver a differentiated in-store experience to the consumer, but do that whilst managing higher costs in store? So the what you saw when you walked around the show was a lot of focus on the cost side of things. How do we manage the workforce more efficiently? How do we deliver a different operational model or enable a different operational model to be used by retailers? But then also, how do we use personalization, use AI to be able to be far closer to the customers? So trying to bridge that gap between their online experience and what they see in store, which is at the moment is two very different consumer experiences.
I think one of the beautiful things that I took away from the show was the fact that there's this realization that I can't make my physical store into an e-commerce store, because that's not what the purpose of the store is. If I want an e-commerce experience, I'll go online. Obviously, I want some of the tech that, allows me to look at stock lookup and some of the back end inventory management or category management. But I love the fact that this year there was that recognition that, and I said this to Simon, in terms of physical being the new digital, in terms of if you're making investments, you have to make them in store if you want to maintain your relevance. And obviously the technology is all there, as you mentioned, to talk about that personalization, to move closer to the customer. But I did hear this sort of constant sort of digital to physical, back to digital, sort of a circular approach to it. You're going to have lots of your customers watching this webinar thinking, how and what are the conversations I need to be having with my executives or, the leadership within our retail organization. From your experience and from what you saw at the show, was there any inspiration? Was there anything that would sort of lend itself to helping people watching this webinar sort of take that conversation back and say, well, we saw this, or there was something? Is there anything that you feel that you saw that aided the conversation?
I think what you saw was the early signs of how AI can be practically used in the store. I think they're still very early signs.
Yeah.
But I think what that requires is more input from retailers as to how they can develop and use that type of technology to deliver a better in-store experience or to drive out costs. So I think for most retailers, their understanding and their investment in that type of technology is pretty critical for the future, because there are many retailers that are now investing heavily in their own capabilities to be able to utilize AI in the right way and deliver benefit to their own organizations. But I think they've got to go on that journey. I think relying on vendors to translate that is a challenge. You need to have both the consumer, the retailer, and the vendor involved in a very strategic partnership to be able to continually develop and to continually change and tweak the way that you operate the store to be able to gain that benefit. But I think it's a really exciting area of development, and as we get into far more concrete examples, I think that will be start to deliver some significant benefit.
Nick, thank you so much for giving up your time and being with us today.
Thanks, Alex, and thanks for all your support.
Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in to this webinar. We hope you enjoyed it. I look forward to continue these conversations in our social channels. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Emma. And remember, we'll be at Eurosys, both ITAB and the Retail Podcast. And don't forget about the special downloadable content that's coming in February. Thank you once again.